Hello. Sounds like the mic is working. So thank you for having me. Get situated here. I want to thank Carriage Trade PR for inviting me to do this, and for all of you for having me here today. Hopefully I can give you guys kind of a broad overview of what the history of film is in Savannah, and how, as businesses, you guys can get involved with that. And of course there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end, which is always my favorite part, so I'll try to get there relatively quickly. So we've been making movies in Savannah for a really long time. The first notable film that I've been able to track down was in 1957. I'm going to play a quick clip from that. If you guys can figure out what it is before we get to the title card, call it out. I'll give you a high five at the end.
Why should you stick your neck out and care for somebody that wants to walk around in town? Just be free. Did you have anything to do with it? No, sir. All I did was talk to Rudy and Lucy, that's all. Help them escape. And don't hit me again.
So that was 1957. The Young Don't Cry, that filmed, I am told, obviously I wasn't around then, but I'm told it filmed out primarily on the property of the Bethesda Home for Boys. The next big, really notable thing that came after that was probably much more recognizable, Cape Fear. The original Cape Fear, a lot of it was done in Savannah. Most of it was actually done on sound stages back in Los Angeles, but that is sort of our first really notable film that people remember. Since then, we've had many, many, many films. We have a very, very long history, which I'll scroll through very quickly here. And this goes all the way up to current year, and this is really just the major productions. There's a lot of smaller stuff that we've had as well during this period. Obviously some stuff you guys probably know that's happened more recently. Magic Mike this past year, very big film. The Do-Over just wrapped recently. A couple other big things that are filming right now actually, Gifted for Fox Searchlight, and Live by Night. Live by Night's a Ben Affleck project which he is directing and starring in, and Gifted stars Chris Evans, who most of you will probably know as Captain America. 1993, Forrest Gump. I'm sure you guys have all heard about this movie. This is when things really got interesting for Savannah. This film specifically is responsible for the founding of my office, the Savannah Film Office, and the commission which advises our office, the Savannah Film Commission. So this movie has done a lot of great things for Savannah. It brings a lot of tourists in, obviously, but it was much less popular when it was actually in production. The city gave the production the keys to the city, and they took liberal use of them. They basically came in, shut down 4 square city blocks, and told everybody who lived on those 4 blocks and who had a business on those 4 blocks that they were not welcome back until they were done. As you can suspect, that was not well received. So there was a reasonable push after this movie finished filming to stop filming altogether in the city of Savannah. Fortunately, there were some very smart people at the time that understood that if properly managed, film could be really great for the city of Savannah. And out of that was founded the Savannah Film Commission, and my office, the Savannah Film Office. So that was 1995, took a little bit of time after that movie. But I'm going to go just into kind of a broad overview of what we do. And, this is usually a presentation unto itself, so I'm going to kind of try to speed through it. But our mission basically is to weave the film and television industry into the fabric of Savannah, into its economic and professional profile. We do a number of different things, which can be summarized basically as project recruitment and project coordination. Project recruitment means bringing the productions to our city because of the economic investment that they bring and because of the job opportunities that they provide. And that covers all different types of productions, from the big feature films all the way down to student films and tiny little photo shoot campaigns. There's a number of steps that are involved in this process. The first obviously is reaching out to the clients. Our kind of biggest source of public outreach actually is referrals from other clients, most people who we work with tend to be very happy and share the good experiences they had with the city of Savannah, with their peers back in LA or wherever they came from. When people reach out to us or when we're able to track them down because they have an active project that they're scouting, we'll do a couple of things to try and attract those here. We'll read through scripts. They'll sometimes send us locations. We'll do breakdowns. We pull from a database of local locations and send those out to try to attract them, to show that their film essentially is doable in the city of Savannah, because obviously you have to have the specific locations for your film for it to be successful. If you're looking for mountains, Savannah's probably not the right place for you to come to, but we can do just about anything else. Once we've got them on the hook with the pictures, we try to get them to town. Everybody who comes here falls in love with the city, so it's usually not a hard sell after that. There's a lot of other complicated elements that go into a film's decision to come here, so we don't get all the projects that we try to recruit. In fact, it's only really a very small fraction. Most of them never even get funded, so they never come to reality, but we are able to get films here on a fairly consistent basis. One of the other key things that brings productions here is local resources, and that's part of what I was brought here to address today. So we'll get into that a little bit deeper, but films need a lot of stuff. They need people, they need props, they need equipment, they need a whole bunch of stuff to make their movie, and they want to get as much of that locally as possible, because if they have to ship it in or import it from somewhere else, it's more expensive. Coordination. Once they're here, once they've decided to film in the city of Savannah, we then take on a little bit different role. We're still making sure that they're getting everything they need, connecting them with the local resources, but we also jump into a number of other areas: public safety, permitting, liability, making sure that what they're doing in the city isn't going to hurt somebody, and that the city is protected should something go wrong. We also coordinate with other entities and other events, et cetera, and make sure that they have a good experience and that the community has a good experience. Project coordination can break down into, and I just sort of covered a lot of that, but a number of different things: meeting locations crew, finding office space, the permits, the liability. The biggest part of this, and this is certainly interesting to you guys or of note, is the quality of life aspect of that. Films can be disruptive, and as that Forrest Gump example I just gave shows, if they're not properly managed, they can be extremely disruptive. So we want to make sure that everybody's having a good experience and that the impact of the film is as least negative as possible or as most positive. We also coordinate with other events, other entities. Films are huge. They cover a large amount of territory. It's very rare that we fit an entire film just in the city of Savannah. So we end up having to work with a lot of other entities: DNR, DOT, neighboring cities and municipalities, even neighboring counties, and obviously with the state office and other entities that have some oversight of this kind of thing. Additional functions, part of the reason I'm here today. We try to nurture the growth of local filmmakers. Local content is important for long-term sustainability. So although it's great to have these producers and directors fly in from Los Angeles and bring all their money and all their stars, if we want a long-term sustainable business, we also have to have content being generated from our city. And it's a long process, but it's starting to work, starting to grow. SCAD's definitely been helpful with that, turning out a lot of talented students. So we're starting to see more and more local production, and that's great. Other great notable thing is that local people tend to want to hire local people and services more, so it also makes our sales approach to getting to hire those local resources a lot easier. We do a lot of other stuff too: education, mentorship, advocacy, events. Essentially that's what I'm doing here today. So that's sort of a brief overview of what our office does. We've been doing that again since 1995, and with a fair amount of success, but things really started to heat up in 2008 when the state announced a statewide incentive program targeted at the film and entertainment industry. I'm not going to go into super detail on this, but the basics are they give a 30% tax credit on whatever a production company spends in Georgia, essentially. So if they come here and they hire crew, or they rent houses or hotels, or buy equipment or anything else, the state will give them a tax credit worth 30% of whatever that spend is. That does turn out to be a very significant amount of money, so producers love it. And for a couple of other reasons as well. There's no cap on it, so we don't run out of money at any point. It's very stable. There's no sunset on it. A lot of other states that have had successful programs are now losing this industry because they had a sunset on their clause. They had a sunset clause in their incentive, and essentially it went away, and there wasn't enough political interest to renew it. So the industry is drying up in those states. Ours does not have a sunset clause, so unless somebody goes out of their way to remove it, this program will continue. And I don't think that's going to happen because it has very strong bipartisan support. The governor, who knows if he'll be here for 10 years, but has committed to it for 10 years, is very supportive of it, as are pretty much all the political parties in the state. The other great thing about it is, although it does generate a lot of money for the production company, it is revenue positive. There's been multiple studies that show that even though we're giving away 30 cents essentially on the dollar to production companies, they're bringing back more money based on their investment. So for every dollar we give them in tax credits, we're getting more than $1 back. Was and is the best program in the country, one of the best in the world, actually. New York's slightly better. New York City itself has a slightly better incentive, but it's limited to the city. Ours has become increasingly popular. Producers love it, and that's part of the reason we've grown exponentially in this industry since 2008. Little video just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what that has been.
Well, in 2008, there was no more houses being built. The film industry really started booming around here, and we got into that. And it's been a blessing for me and my family, for sure.
While in school for fashion, I was told I would have to move to LA, or I would have to move to New York. Being a homeowner in Georgia, I really didn't want to uproot and have to leave home, and the film industry has just really saved me.
In the film business, it's kind of like building a house. You have to have carpenters, you have to have plumbers, you have to have electricians, you have to have someone to help you pick out the colors, the appliances, the furniture. You know, all that is encompassed in the film industry. So we hire a lot of vendors that come in and they do all this.
So after working with about 30 different productions over time, I paid attention to what their needs were, what their warehouse space needs were, what their office needs were. Melling Avenue Stageworks came about really kind of out of luck. I stumbled upon this building in the south side of Atlanta. From the evolution of where I've come from doing short-term leases, ending up with a building I now own a part of was a pretty amazing transformation.
We're a building material supply retailer, and we've been in business since 1990. In 2008, we saw things really start kind of coming apart at the seams. 2009, pretty much stopped. It's about the same time that we had some acquaintances here in Tucker that are involved in the film business. I can honestly say that's what kept us in business through the 2009, 10, and 11, when things were just awful. The production business has been good to us. It's kept us busy. It's kept us from laying off employees. It's kept us going, basically. It started off at probably 15 to 20% of our business. At times it's 35 to 40% of our business now.
The film industry has been a phenomenal partner for the Lifecycle Building Center. When we began our operation, started working with a TV project, and they became our largest single customer to date. There's a tremendous amount of material that comes out of film projects, and we're able to capture that material and distribute it back into the community to organizations.
Since 1998, I've been doing this. I began in the theater and then moved into film in 2005. If it wasn't for this, I would not be making the money that I make now and be able to afford to do the things that I am able to do. Buy my house, have my car, take care of my family.
It's keeping people employed, people coming here and leasing apartments, staying in hotels, eating at restaurants. So overall, it's really, really doing a great thing for the economy here in Georgia.
Well, on this particular show, at the highest point, I mean, we had over 100 guys out here just in the building part.
As early as 5 years ago, we were 8 people. And since we started getting involved with the Georgia Film Tax Credit, we have gone from 8 people from the initial year of the tax credit to now we have 150 employees.
The tax incentives for the film industry have been a great boon to the movie industry. And by the same token, the movie industry has been a great boon to the economy for the state of Georgia.
I've worked on 20 to 30 productions in the state of Georgia since 2005. We've been everywhere: Valdosta, Griffin, Georgia, St. Simon's Island, Blairsville, Helen, Georgia, all over the state of Georgia.
I've worked on The Walking Dead seasons 3 and 4. I've worked on the originals. I've worked on The Game, on BET, as well as Stevens and Lee seasons 1 and 2.
It's not that the people that are making money are out of state. It's not a bunch of LA people. It's most of the people that are here, they're all residents of the state of Georgia, and they've lived here. I've even had friends out in LA say, we're all even struggling to find work, try to go somewhere else, and that's why I chose Atlanta.
If we want for the film industry, I don't know where I'd be.
I'm not sure that we would be here today after almost 100 years of business had it not been for getting a fair, big share of this business over the years and experiencing the loyalty and it goes both ways. It's really been good for us. I gotta tell you, I love the film.
So hopefully that gives you a sort of an idea of what this business means for our state. And I can tell you that that video is a couple years old now, and it's grown actually significantly since then. Georgia is the third largest state in the nation for production. Only New York and LA are bigger than this state now. And if you look at the amount of jobs created by this industry in our state, is actually the third largest employer in the state of Georgia. I think that video quoted 30,000 direct jobs. There's actually over 77,900 jobs that are supported by the film and television industry in the state of Georgia. And this past year, that resulted in over $6 billion in economic impact. So pretty big. Most of that is happening in Atlanta, unfortunately, but it's still a pretty big thing for us down here in Savannah. This kind of gives you some of the numbers we've had over the past 5 years for us. And you can see that over the past 5 years, it's a pretty big number, $123 million in economic impact to our local community. That's all right here. And you can see that it's growing significantly as each year goes on. And a lot of that has to do with the incentive. A lot of it also has to do with the fact that we're getting more and more businesses and infrastructure here so that the movies can be more successful and we can accommodate larger projects more effectively. I'm excited to announce, and hopefully some of you guys have heard about this already, but just a couple of weeks ago, the Savannah Economic Development Authority actually passed an incentive specifically for our community. This is only the second of its kind in the nation. Florida, I believe St. Petersburg also has a program. Unfortunately, Florida's state doesn't have a very good program, so that doesn't do a whole lot to help them out. But we now have a local incentive which will take effect January 1, which really will be, I think, a watershed moment for our community. So I'm very excited that CETA was able to get this pushed through and get it funded. The reasoning behind this was that on paper, it looks like it's cheaper to film in Atlanta than it looks like it is here. And that's because of the things you still have to import to film in Savannah. Most of that is crew, most of that's labor. And we do have a relative shortage of skilled labor in the film industry in Savannah. So on paper, it looks like, because there's so much more crew in Atlanta, that it's actually cheaper to film in Atlanta because you can get more of your crew there without having to pay to fly them in and put them up and feed them while they're there. You do, on paper, have to do that in Savannah. Now in reality, it's not actually quite that clean because there's so many things filming in Atlanta, there's actually not much more crew there than there is here, at least available crew. But producers always sit down and they look at the numbers first, and often will decide to go to Atlanta instead of Savannah based on those numbers. So hopefully, this will swing the scales in our direction and make it a little bit more fair so we can get a lot more projects in town. The basic breakdown of this program is that it's capped at $150 million a year, or $1.5 million a year, but be careful about how I say that. $1.5 million a year, and per project, each project can get a certain amount based on the type of project it is and how much work they're doing. There are some requirements. You have to spend a certain amount for each type of project in the community. You have to do at least 60% of your shooting days in the community, and this applies to Chatham County as a whole. You can see for feature film, you can get up to $150,000. It's accrued at a rate of 10% based on what you spend in this community. So again, that's on local people that you hire and local services that you purchase. So this is also good for the local businesses and the local crew because it gives the production more of an incentive to hire the local people rather than somebody from a neighboring community or from LA or from Atlanta or wherever else. TV is what we're really working to attract because it provides long-term consistent employment. So that's something we're really pushing for, so you can get more money through this incentive program for a television series. up to $250,000 if it's a network show. This is very, very exciting stuff. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this does for our community. And again, to address the biggest sort of complaint we get from producers when they come to town is the lack of local skilled labor. So there's also a portion of this incentive which is aimed at attracting skilled labor to relocate to our community to purchase houses here or to rent a house on a reasonably long lease. And some information on the caps. If there's questions about this, I can go into it at the end. So I was asked to come here today to talk about how people can get involved in the film and television industry, and I was told I should make a list, so I have attempted to do so. So this is the 5 things that you guys should know if you want to be involved in the film and television industry. You can see them there. Starting at the top is that it starts with you. And thanks to Charles Bone for this quote. I stole it unabashedly. You can be a resource for the film and entertainment industry. If you have a service that you sell, if you have a product that you sell, whatever it is, there is some application for it in the film and entertainment industry. When movies come to town, they need basically everything. They bring a lot of people, so they need a lot of the things that a person would need if they were moving here. They need places to stay, they need food, they need clothing, they need all of that stuff. And they need, of course, the stuff to make the movie, the equipment, the lights, the transportation, all of that stuff they need when they get to town. So whatever it is that you have that you sell, there's probably some application for it, whether it's soap or whether you're a caterer. There's some application for your business in the entertainment industry. There's an opportunity for you to make money off of this industry. So how do you do that? First things first, you have to be fast. Most of these companies come out of LA and they expect calls, and this is one of the things we get a lot of complaints about. They expect calls to be returned extremely rapidly. And we always have the conversation with them when they get here that this is the South and things run at a slightly different pace. And be prepared for that. But still, they are generally impatient people. So if they call you, call them back as quickly as you can. They are very receptive to rapid response. They all the time say, I've been calling people, I've been calling people, I've been calling people, they won't call me back. What is going on in Savannah? And I don't know what to tell them half the time. So if I can say anything, call them back. Please, 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 call them back as quickly as you can. And I will say that this industry does not wait around. They're not going to call you and wait for your call to come back. If they've called you, they've called at least 2 of your competitors. And whoever calls them back first is going to have the best shot at the business. Once you've got it, make sure you get it to them, and get it to them quickly. And be on time. We've had some local vendors that didn't do this 3rd little item here, and it'll kill you. Movies spend a lot of money, On an average film, they spend about $360 a minute per day. So if you're 5 minutes late, you just cost them a whole lot of money. They do not like you being late, so you gotta be on time, you gotta be quick. Flexible delivery. They expect you to deliver your services at some rather unusual times often. They need it when they need it. They work at night sometimes, so they may expect you to deliver it in the middle of the night. They may need you to deliver it multiple times a day. They may need it on the weekend. And you can see I said sometimes. Take note of that. If you want to be involved in this industry, you're going to have to expect to take calls outside of business hours and probably respond to the service outside of business hours. But fortunately, the old adage, cheap, fast, good, pick any 2. They will almost always pick the last 2. So it usually means you can charge a little bit more than you would your other clients. They expect to pay for the convenience of getting this stuff in the middle of the night, getting a call returned after hours, etc. So generally speaking, they don't mind. However, they are still going to expect you to be competitive. And if they're purchasing a lot, volume pricing is a big thing. This comes into play especially for hotels. If they're putting 100 people in a hotel for 3 months, they're going to expect you to give them a better deal than you would your average customer. Quality and value. So quality is super important, as I'm sure you all know. The definition of quality for the film and entertainment industry is a little bit different than it is for a lot of other industries. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. I think the first way this is illustrated is the fact that it's usually for a short-term need. So if they're building a set, it doesn't have to be there that long. We're not talking about it having to last 10 years. At most, you're usually talking about it lasting a month. So sometimes the quality standards are lower. But by the same token, sometimes they're higher. Again, time is money. They can't afford to wait on something, so they're going to expect it to be there quickly, and often there's going to be a very short amount of time between the time they call you and the time they need it. So sometimes you have to deliver things more quickly. I may have mentioned this already, but they rarely give a second chance. If they call you and they hire you and you don't deliver the first time, they probably won't call you a second time unless there's no other options. Again, time is money. They cannot afford to wait for you. Wow, we went through 5. That was quick. All right, so how do you get involved? So one of the first things you can do is think about what your business is and how it might have application in the film and entertainment industry. And if you can't quite put a finger on that, you're more than welcome to call my office, or I would recommend, in addition to calling my office, speaking with somebody that you know in the film and television industry, because they can probably think of how your specific product or service might be of use. You know, again, if we're going back to soap, they probably don't need that on a daily basis on set. I mean, obviously it's going to be in the laboratories, but if you're doing artisanal soap, they're probably not buying a lot of that. But it, for example, might be useful if they're doing gift bags. Many films will do gift bags for their cast and crew when they arrive, and they have to put stuff in there, and they like to put local products in there. So if you're a local soap maker, that might be an excellent place for you to get involved with the film and television industry. Network. This is true of any industry, but especially of the film and television industry. Talk to your peers, talk to people you know in the industry. Let them know that you're interested in being a service to this industry. Because again, this industry requires pretty much everything. There's some application for anything you do in the film and television industry. So you may not know what it is, they may not know what it is, but at some point a film's going to come down the pipe and they're going to be asking for some strange thing, and it may just be that you happen to have it. It may be your backyard, it may be your house, it may be something you sell. There's something they're going to need that you have that they can use. Step 2, and this is a big one. I touched on this briefly earlier. We host a crew and service directory on our website, savannahfilm.org, which is essentially a listing of all available, or as much as we can get our hands on, local crew and local resources for the film and television industry. When producers come to town, this is one of the first things they look at. Serves 2 functions. One is to show them that we have the resources so their film can be successful. So it's important for the recruiting process. It also helps us connect them with those local resources. So if you want to get involved in this industry, a great way to get started is to get yourself added to this directory. It is free. I always like to mention that because sometimes people ask, well, how much does it cost? It's free. This is a service we provide, again, because it's a recruitment thing and it brings in jobs and investment when we can show that we have the resources here to make a project successful. We are about to launch a new website, which will have a new crew and service directory, so I'm just going to briefly touch on how you can get into that. This is the page which you get to by clicking or going to this link at the top here, which is probably hard to remember. Easier way to find it is if you go to our current website, savannahfilm.org, and this will remain the URL, but the directory actually will be hosted to this site. And click News, there's a link to this, and you just have to fill out this registration form. Pretty straightforward. Again, if you have any questions, you can give us a call, and we're happy to help you out with that. Other opportunities to think about. If you get approached by a film project, and I'm really posing this more to you as a citizen than I am as a business, but these productions can generate a huge amount of exposure for not only our city, but for your business specifically. So if, for example, if you have a restaurant, you were hosting a cast party, that could be very good for you because the paparazzi shows up, they take a bunch of pictures of the actors, your sign's in the background, you just got a ton of free advertising, didn't have to pay anything for it, and it's now all over the world. Just something else to think about. There are a lot of these little sort of side possibilities that do have significant value. Film tourism is a huge one. The state actually has a site dedicated to this. The impact of film tourism is actually larger probably than the business itself. The money that the productions are spending is really significant. Again, about $6 billion in Georgia last year. The tourism part of that can pay out dividends for years and years and years and years after a production comes. Forrest Gump is sort of the prime example of that. Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Obviously, we still have people coming to our town because of those 2 movies. So one of these projects can really change your town. Another good example is The Walking Dead in Sonoya. That tiny little town had 5 businesses when that show started filming there. They now have over 51, and all of that is because of that show coming to their town. New business opportunities, again, back to Forrest Gump, I like to mention this, Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. This is based on the Bubba Gump Shrimp from the Forrest Gump movie. I'm surprised we don't have one of these in Savannah. I've always wondered about that. Anyway, that more or less wraps up my presentation. I'm going to give one last little video. This is specific to Savannah. 2 minutes, and then I'll take questions.
We've been filming here for 28 days in Savannah. We filmed in Jekyll Island, Tybee. It's a great place to make a movie.
I'm always happy to come back to Georgia because I was born in Georgia at Hammargren University, where we filmed actually right next to the CDC Contagion.
So they call this a day at the office.
In a few minutes, we're going to be shooting the opening shot of the movie with Mike down here. Truly, we could not have asked for a more perfect location for the shot and for everything else that we've done out here. We're really lucked out with our locations on this movie.
When we were scouting for Magic Mike XXL, originally we were going to be split over a couple of different states, and it turned out that Georgia had all of the various looks that we wanted, and we settled on Savannah as a base of production.
Welcome to True Blood Season 8.
We're at Warcliffe Plantation, which is kind of your quintessential Southern plantation.
Sure, this is the place to get out. Sure, so just to walk right in.
We're here actually in Jekyll Island in Georgia because of this great convention center that's kind of one of a kind. It's right on the beach.
The people of Savannah, and particularly of Tybee Island, have been super welcoming. It's just been an absolute pleasure to shoot here. It's definitely the best experience that Chan and I have had working on the movie.
We're actually going to finish a day early because we've been so efficient here. So I want to thank the Film Commission for being so helpful to us, and we hope the film does them proud.
And just some real quick numbers. That movie brought over $13 million in direct investment to our community, and I just like to toss out numbers when I have them. They booked over 10,000 hotel nights. I want to thank also, I think I thanked Carriage Trade already for inviting me, Charles for giving me his quote and some advice on how to put this presentation together. Also the Georgia Film, Music, and Digital Entertainment Office, which is the state office for film, who provided those videos. And the Savannah Economic Development Authority, again, for that incredible incentive program, which is launching January 1.